Hello everyone, myself Sushma Vispude here to start with the next topic of DBMS, that is SQL. Unit 2 of Database Management System is based on SQL and PL/SQL concept. So today we'll start with the SQL topic. The objective of the next coming sessions are to develop an ability to use database techniques such as SQL. Here in detail we will learn the fundamental concepts of SQL and the use of SQL for database design. Also, we will learn and understand the SQL data models. So already we have covered these topics in the previous sections, database management system and RDBMS definition. So we will have a small recap of this before going to start with the fundamentals of SQL. So you know DBMS contains information about a particular enterprise. Here enterprise, I hope you are clear with this. Enterprise nothing but an organization. For that you want to maintain the information in the database. For example, any one company or our college, right? So DBMS also contains the collection of interrelated data, set of programs to access the data, and an environment that is both convenient and efficient to use. So DBMS is a software system that enables users to define, create, maintain, and control access to the database. Like your other programming language, DBMS software provides you an editor where you can define your application database, you can create your application database and maintain and control access to the database. And what is RDBMS? RDBMS stands for here Relational Database Management System. In the previous sessions also we have covered the different data models, database models. So one of the database model is the relational data model. In the relational data model, the data is represented in the form of tables. So what is data model actually? Data model is nothing but the different ways of representing the data. So one of the way to represent your database is in the form of tables, which is made up of rows and columns. So RDBMS is the basis for SQL and for all the modern database systems such as MySQL, Microsoft Access, Oracle, right? MySQL Server, and so on. And the data in the RDBMS is stored in the database objects called as tables. So here R stands for relation, and relation is nothing but the table. This basic concept already we have covered in the previous sessions. Right? So like your simple table, here table is a collection of related data entries. Right? Here related word is very important, student. So here table is a collection of related data entries and it consists of rows and columns. So here is the example of the RDBMS table of 4 attributes and 7 columns. So these 4 attributes represent the properties of object, right? And here my object is nothing but the student, right? So here we want to store the information about the student, right, in the college, right? And each and every individual student is represented by these 4 attributes, that is name, city, course, and mobile value, right? So here with the help of DBMS software, you can create this table, you can define their attributes, you can define the data types of these attributes, and also you can insert the data into the table. And not only you can insert the data, you can also update and delete the data from the tables. Right? So for day-to-day transaction, you design an application which can be based on the DBMS system. Right? These are some applications, those you know. Here, banking application for handling the transactions data. Here, transaction data includes creating new customer, right? Then withdraw operation, deposit operation, right? Or creating fixed deposit account, right? So creating account, creating loan account, all these are the operation that you can perform with the banking application, and we need one DBMS for storing all transaction data. And similarly here, airline applications for handling the reservation data and schedule data. Then university application for student registration and grades. Then sales application for handling customers data, product data, purchase data, and so on. Right? So there are many applications where DBMS system is required. Now daily somehow we use application on the mobile for our day-to-day requirements. So the best example of this is our online shopping. So for example, DMart Ready is the one application maybe nowadays you are using, which is used for online shopping, and in this application customers fill the details of their order, items name, quantity, right, also personal contact details and address of the customer, right. So one page is provided here in this application to fill this order, and customer click on the submit button, right. So definitely in the background there will be one DBMS system which will provide the table where my data of order will be stored, right. So not only for storing the data but also for managing and manipulating this data, right, we need the software, right, and that is nothing but the DBMS. And here SQL language provides you all these syntax for creating and managing your database. So here is the another example of the college database where we can create, as per your application requirement, you can create the different relations here. So here the schema for this relations are defined. So here you can note down the schema is nothing but the database design. So information about the database design. So here, and relation is nothing but the table, right? So relation word we use alternatively for the table. So if you observe here, we have defined these 6 different relations with their attribute names, right? So here in the capital is the relation name, table name, that is student. For student, we need to store the information, ID, name, password, address, right? So these are the attributes of my table, right? Then faculty is the another relation with the 5 attributes, ID, name, department ID, password, address. Then course is the another relation with the 4 different attributes, course code, department ID, course name, and so on, right? So like this you can define, right, first schema for your application, and then, right, you can convert this schema into the table by using SQL syntax. So how you can convert these schema into SQL syntax, right? So basically for application development, any application development, we need some front-end language softwares and back-end language softwares, right? So you all are familiar with the front-end language software, that is Python, Java, C#, then C++. You might have developed your assignments in the previous semester using one of this language, using Python language, Java language, right? You all know these are the object-oriented programming language, right? This language will help you to develop your program, right, or application. So not only we require front-end languages, but also we need a back-end language for handling the huge amount of data, right? So here back-end languages includes SQL, PL, SQL, right? Then here MySQL, Oracle, and SQL Server, these are the example of the DBMS software that you need to install, right? This provides you the editor or platform for executing all these SQL commands and programs. So some of the students are confused with these two words, SQL and Oracle. So here what is Oracle and SQL? Like your here front-end language. So OOPS is the concept, object-oriented programming language is the category of the language, right? And Python, Java, these are the languages that you need to install, right? Those supports the object-oriented programming syntax, right? Similarly here, Oracle, MySQL, these are the software that you need to install, any one software for handling the database. Those are based on the SQL concepts, right? Those provides you syntax for the structured query language, right? So PLSQL is also structured query language, but it is a procedural language that also we have to cover in the syllabus. I hope student you are clear with the difference between front-end and back-end languages. So both the types of languages we require to develop an application. So here front-end languages help you for writing the server-side scripting, for designing the form, to design the graphical user interface for your application, but here back-end languages are used for designing the database. So you can go down here, and backend activities are happen in the background, and those are end user are totally unaware of the backend activities. Those are happen in the background. If you take the example of here ERP system, right? So in the ERP system, you as a student fill the feedback form. You give the feedback of the different faculties for the different subject, right? But you are not aware that in the background MySQL is used as a backend for storing your feedback data. Right? So in our ERP system, college ERP system, backend is use MySQL, right? But you are not aware where your data goes in the server, right? So in the one machine, DBMS server is there, and whenever you submit your feedback for the subject, it is stored in the MySQL database management system, right? So that everything we will cover in our syllabus, how your DBMS software is used as a backend for handling the database. So some of the points about the SQL you can note down here. So SQL is a standard language for accessing and manipulating the databases. And SQL stands for structured query language, right? So why it is called as the structured query language? And what is the meaning of this structured query? That also we have to cover in detail, right, in the coming sessions. Then SQL lets you access and manipulate the databases. SQL is an ANSI standard, right? And the purpose of SQL 92 and 99 standards are to specify the syntax or semantics for data definition and manipulation, define the data structures, and enable the portability. So here is the one example of the use of the SQL. What is the role of SQL in any application development, right? So to build, here we can take the example of website, our college website, for example, right? To build a website that shows data from a database, you need to install, right, an RDBMS database program, RDBMS software. Any one of the software you can install here, either MS Access, SQL Server, MySQL, or Oracle. All these are the structured query language. DBMS, RDBMS, all these are the RDBMS. Then also you need to install server-side scripting language like PHP or ASP or JavaScript. If you are familiar with the Java, you can use the Java as a front-end language. Then if you are familiar with the MySQL, you can take MySQL as the back-end language, right? And for designing your forms and formatting forms, right, to get the data on the form, you can install here, you need here HTML or CSS. Anyone you can use for the formatting, right? So student, whenever you want to develop any application, you should be ready with all these setups, right? So first setup will be your front-end side setup, any one language, right, that you are familiar with, right? Then second, the backend language for handling the database, right? And also HTML for form designing and formatting. So what SQL can do, once you have installed SQL in your machine, right? Once you have SQL in the machine, what you can do with this SQL? So there are many components of the SQL language that supports you to perform different operations. So SQL can execute queries against a database. Queries are nothing but the syntax that you use to perform the operation with the database. So these operations can be retrieve operation, it can be insert operation, it can be update operation or delete operation. Okay? To perform all these different operations, you can execute queries against the database. Okay? So SQL can retrieve data from the database, insert data into the database, update records in the database, then delete records, create new database, create new tables, right? Create stored procedures. Right? Not only you can use here the basic commands, but also the strong feature that is provided by the SQL is the stored procedures. So like your other programming language, you can also write here procedure and functions. Right? So you can create views. What is view? That also we have to cover in the detail in the syllabus in the next sessions, right? Then also you can set permissions on table, procedures, and views for the security, right? So that also we will cover in the syllabus, right? So here is one example. Here I want to give you idea about how what is the role of your SQL in any application, right? So you as an end user, if you want to fill the student registration form, right? For your simplicity, I have taken here student registration form. So you want to fill this form, so student will enter all this data, personal information, name, father name, postal address, city, course, right? Then mobile number, and once you click all this data, you click on the submit button, right? So definitely when the student will click on the submit button, the background there will be one table where this data entry will be added, right? So what operation, how will be table? So you can see here when student will click on the submit button, this table, for example, Swapnajit, right, record will be created here in the table. So here's your SQL provides the environment for creating this table structure first, right? So initially as a database designer, we need to create the structure of the table with the field names and with their data types, right? And initially when we create the table will be empty, and these records will be filled by the application. This field will be entries will be filled by the application, right, when the students will click on the submit button. So on submit button, the programming will be insert operation, right? The insert operation programming will be performed on the submit button. So I hope students you are clear with this. So here with this DBMS applications, applications based on the DBMS system, we can perform day-to-day transactions on the current data entered by the user. And what operations you can perform with this data, that is insert, update, delete, read, write operations, right? And users of this operation can perform these operations, right? Our student, clerk, right? Then operators, right? And ERP is our best example of this DBMS application, right? I hope you are clear with the basic fundamental concepts of the SQL language. Then in the next session, we will have the discussion on the details syntax of the SQL language. Thank you. Have a good day.